AI agents versus digital assistants. What's the real difference? And more importantly, which one actually delivers real value for your business? In this episode, we're going to break down what we're seeing in the real world, from customer conversations to actual ROI, and where each of these technologies fit. If you're evaluating AI and JD Edwards, this will help you avoid investing in the wrong place. Welcome back to Not Your Grandpa's JD Edwards, where we help you make smarter ERP decisions without the fluff. Today's topic is one we're seeing come up constantly: AI agents versus digital assistants. And candidly, we've had a lot of conversations with customers where expectations don't match reality, especially when it comes to digital assistants. So today, we're going to unpack that: what each one actually does, where the value is, and how to think about them moving forward. But joining us today is Manuel Neyra, VP of Artificial Intelligence and Products at ERP Suites. Manuel, welcome back, reoccurring guest. But for those out there that haven't seen you on the podcast before, can you give us a little bit of your background in this space?
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for having me, Nate. It's always a pleasure to sit down here and we have fun talking about all the intricacies around AI. Yes, pleased to say that it's almost going to be 5 years that I'm part of ERP Suites. Prior to that, my background is JD Edwards. Started off as a software engineer back in the mid 90s and grew through the ranks in a variety of different roles and on product management, product strategy, and variety of different roles that I took there. Working on what was One World, now Enterprise One, and how it's grown. So yeah, long history, based in Denver, and excited to talk about AI today.
Yeah, a lot of people in our companies are actually having their anniversaries of X amount of years. I know mine's in July and I'll be hitting 3 years. So there's a lot of people that have been around here for a while. I know 3 years and 5 years doesn't sound like a lot, but there are a lot that have been here since the beginning, 20 years. And we're about to celebrate our 20th anniversary on June 13th, which
Really
is
excited.
very exciting.
Mhm.
But let's start with the big picture. What's the difference between digital assistants and AI agents?
That's a great question, right? And it's digital assistance was one of the early stages of AI as it was starting to get momentum in the enterprise space. Digital assistant is really transactional, right? You ask a question, it responds, and it provides insights, right? Compared to an agent, right? And we're looking at agentic AI, we're really looking at a solution that can run a process end to end, whether it's a business process or a workflow. It can manage it end to end. It has an objective. It knows about business goals, and it can pull data. It can inquiry and whatnot. But the key thing here with an agent is that it will perform the actions, right? And one of the key differences between the two is, one, a digital assistant will give you information, but there's still work to be done by the human to take action on it, right? On that data point. Here with an agent, the agent can have a varying degree of autonomy based on what it's being performed, and even if a human is in the loop, right, it will suggest what it's going to do, and the human can then approve for those human in the loop type of interactions. So rarely transformational is kind of the operative word, right, if you will, for agents versus a digital assistant is more kind of getting singular insights.
Yeah. And some people would think that it's like agent is the next step of a digital assistant, but that's not really the case. The digital assistant is now built into so many of these AI agents. And that's what is one of the most interesting things about it. I know we've talked offline about that, of how I really like, and that's where I was, where I thought the digital assistants were a great product. And the AI agents were just a little spin-off of it. That's not the case at all. It's basically reinventing what we thought AI can be in this space. And specifically for JD Edwards, how would you really define what an digital assistant is for JD Edwards?
Digital assistant in JD Edwards would be, inquiring on an account balance, right? Or looking at a specific data point in procurement. You have some insights, or you want to ask a particular status of your, setup in MRP, right? That's what you're gonna be inquiring on that, and it will return singular status. Versus an agent, right? You can have an agent that's running your MRP operations head to toe, and through a digital assistant that is part of that agent, you can inquire on it. You can, kind of ask it specific questions beyond what the agent is exposing and showing you. Because every agent, one thing that's important when we talk to customers about is the agent is going to track everything it does. It's going to be logged. So you can see everything it does, and it trace back to it, and it also give you why it's doing the things that it does. So two very transformational things. And to your point, though, digital assistants now are part of our agent offerings.
Yeah. And so on paper, digital assistants, they do sound helpful, but why are customers having, or at least struggling to see the value in digital assistants versus an agent?
That's a great question, and really the fundamental common denominator, as I was thinking about our podcast today, is what is it, was it provide, right? And was it provide, and what's providing, it's providing insights, right? So it is providing insights and is valuable for certain customers to get those insights, but generally that insight then drives something more, right? And saying,
Mm,
is that a representation that the business is healthy, or the business process is running optimally, or are we leaving business on the table, or are there some inefficiencies in our business processes? An agent will surface that. A
mm,
digital assistant will not, right? And that's where we start getting the difference between value on those two, right? How do you place a value on getting information, singular information back? There's some value, but being able to quantify that becomes a challenge versus an agent that could be working 24/7, gives you scale, it gives you insights, right? And allows you to have your team, take the next level in terms of operations without having to add headcount. Now you really start getting something that can be measured. I think that's what we've encountered across multiple sales cycles with customers. But don't get me wrong, right? There are some places where a digital assistant may make sense for a customer, but it's important to have those conversations with the customer and understand what is it that they're going to get as a result, right? It may
mm,
be a facilitation type of use case, and if that's what the customer wants, if facilitating access to data, right? The traditional requiring a DBA to run a query over JD Edwards to pull a certain set of data. Well, a digital assistant can do that. Right now, again,
okay.
is that valuable enough? If that's valuable for a customer, then perhaps yes. But our experience is the vast majority of customers are able to more quantify the return on investment on an agent versus a digital assistant.
Yeah. So the digital assistant doesn't eliminate work. It more assists you in actually completing that goal. Where an AI agent, yes, it'll still keep you in the loop. There are so many dashboards and ways that you can view exactly what an agent is doing, but it will be doing that manual task or repeatable task or something that at with a digital assistant you still have to do, and it's still taking up a lot of your time where an agent will eliminate that. Am I right in the difference there in terms of the value?
You're absolutely right. It's different, and it has definitely gone in that way. And one thing that I wanted to share is as you look at the industry, right, you will
Mm,
see some is what I would call exceptional type of digital assistants that are being built in the marketplace that have some capabilities to do some
mm,
things. Right? But then the question is, if you have the chat interface, right, the digital interface,
mm,
right, and it's doing things, how do you know? How do you get visibility, right? And that was one thing that as we looked at architecting our agents, we thought that the dashboard, right, the dynamic dashboard that gives you, KPIs and trending data and whatnot of what the agent's doing would be the optimal kind of example, right? So as the agent is doing things, you're getting real-time updates of what's going on, versus a digital assistant. It kind of just, is processing and may say, okay, I did it. Well, guess what? Now the human now needs to go into JD Edwards or to another application to see, okay, what exactly did it do? Did it do what I expected it to do, et cetera, et cetera?
Mhm. So would you say, is that the reason why we're seeing more interest shift to AI agents instead of digital assistants?
Yes, I think is definitely the case, right? With an agent, we are really transforming how the process is being executed, right? And really enabling scale and operational efficiencies for companies, right? And whether it's reallocating people to to tasks that are higher on the value chain, and then having what we call digital co-workers that are working in conjunction with those members, but those members are working on other different tasks, right? It is really transforming how operations can be executed, and it's making a difference. So yeah, that's why the interest is heavy on agents, because it's not only surfacing information, it's resolving,
Mhm.
and it's doing it continuously, right? Because agents have goals, and that's why when I was talking about earlier about a digital assistant, it is you ask, it answers. You ask, it answers. This one has a goal and it performs that continuously, right? And yes, you can still ask it introspective type of questions in terms of, and it will answer to you, right? Much like if you and I are colleagues, right? And you have some responsibilities in a payables function, and I have slightly different responsibilities, but we need to speak to interact. You can do the same with a digital assistant.
Mhm. That's the digital worker, you know. It really does take that terminology, we should say, and really embodies it, because it is its own entity in a way. I mean, I'm not saying that we're at the time of Terminator yet. And on this podcast, I'm very serious about that.
Yes.
But we're not there yet.
Right.
And it is great to see how it can make your life easier. It can make a lot of these tasks a lot quicker, and you can spend your time on more impactful work instead of having to do these repeatable tasks over and over and over again. But digital assistants, yes, they're still great. They make it easier to interact with your system, but they
Correct.
don't fundamentally change how work gets done. AI agents, on the other hand, they're focused on actually executing and driving business processes. And that's where customers are seeing the real value, because you don't really get that with a digital assistant. But what does this really look like in practice? Where do digital assistants tend to fall short compared to AI agents?
No, great question, right? And it's really in the action portion of what what the business is encountering, right? Whether you're inquiring on information, basically the model that happens or that is being executed with a digital assistant is feeding the human information so the human can take action, can analyze it, and then determine what needs to be done, right? To close that business process, be it a step or two, or be able to execute that entire business process. So really, you're providing an assistance to the human, but it's a sliver usually of the overall business process. Now you look at an agent, it is looking at the business process or the workflow holistically, and it will run through. And I have had these kind of conversations with customers, even if there's a human in the loop where a customer is not ready to go fully autonomous on some of these processes, it's one thing for a human to see a recommendation, have it provide, agent provides substantiation as to why it's recommending it. And in some cases, it might offer alternatives. But the one thing is, you're talking about a click to say, yes, I want to do this, right? Or if there's some feedback, you can do that very quickly. You look at the digital assistant type of model, you're doing all that work that the agent's doing, right? So the load shifting is significant from human to digital coworker for an agent. And that
Yeah.
is really the crux, right, of it's a game changer for many
Yeah.
companies.
So maybe get a little bit more specific.
Mhm.
What's like a common use case where a digital assistant would actually make sense for some of these users?
Great question, right? And one of the common ones that comes up in our conversations is a help desk kind of
Mm,
situation, right?
yeah.
Help desk, and you have business analysts many times, or some technical folks that are picking up the phone or reviewing tickets, right? Yeah, online, right? A digital assistant could help with that, right? And being able to report an issue and be able to enter a ticket in a ServiceNow system, if that's what the customer's doing, whatever equivalent system they're using to track issues. That could be a simple kind of entry point to use. Now, remember, now there's still someone on the back end that
Hmm.
would have to address that issue, right? If there's something that is, let's say, is going wrong with JD Edwards, and a call object kernel has fallen down and someone needs to analyze that, then you need to get a CNC on it on the back end. An agent, theoretically, if it was an agent, it would all not only receive the ticket, it would review it, and then it would hand it off to another agent to figure it out, that an agent that is trained on CNC, and that agent could theoretically fix the issue. So you really have a loop that's complete, kind of fully managed by digital coworkers.
Yeah.
That
So
answer?
yeah, of course. In your experience though, would people be happier or are they looking for more of a digital assistant in that scenario? Or would it be better for them to just go full agent at this point?
Yes, I think, for that there's a component here, and at Blueprint, right, we had some conversations around that. There's elements in terms of AI adoption that need to be considered, right? Part of it is company culture, part of it is involvement, right, of customers. It's part of the business process, right? And and data is part of it. So all those things need to be considered to adopt. And some customers are not ready necessarily to take the plunge for an agent, right? Their first step into AI may be, more comfortable for them and make more sense for a digital assistant, right? And like I said earlier, the vast number of customers that we've spoken to, right? There's been some customers that looked like they were going to go digital assistant, but, ultimately they decided to go agents. To be honest, right, most of them have gone that direction. So the possibility exists, Nate. But then if they go to agents, they need to realize, right, that the value prop of an agent, even if it's a human in the loop kind of component, is being able to cede some of that responsibility of the process execution to a digital coworker, and being able to gain those operational efficiencies, right? Now we do, my team does a fantastic job, and my colleague, right, Mo Shujat, does a fantastic job as well, as we work together on these agents to make sure that they're doing the right thing, right? And they're operating efficiently. So, and for any customer, right, that's one thing that we show, we demonstrate. How do we do that to make sure that an agent actually does what it's supposed to do and it doesn't hallucinate?
Yeah. And it's actually a perfect point there. Uh, like, so agents, right? We use the term agents, AI agents, and digital workers kind of hand in hand here.
Mhm.
But would you say to make people more comfortable, is that why we kind of change that terminology to a digital worker? Or is there a little bit more to it?
Well, it's not just to make people comfortable. One is to help them understand that the digital coworker, even in an agent and an agentic AI world that we live today, and you mentioned it earlier, right, with Skynet reference, right, AGI, right? If we ever get to that phase, it's a different level, right? And the reality is, even for autonomous AI, agentic AI that we have today, these systems are designed to still interact with humans. They are not designed to be completely running on their own and defining the scope of where they're playing. It's not there yet, to be honest. So, from that perspective, there's the capability of leveraging the functionality of agentic AI and gaining the benefits, but customers need to realize that there's adjustments, right? There's adjustments in business processes, and displacement doesn't always mean getting rid of your human talent. It is allocating them to those job tasks that you haven't been able to get to that are valuable now, that now you maybe free up their time to be able to do. And the coworker engagement, back to your point, is they're working alongside humans. So that's why we coined the term of digital coworkers.
So what we're really seeing is digital assistants help more at the edges, but they don't really own the process. AI agents, on the other hand, they step in, actually run parts of the business process, which is why they're being viewed more like digital workers.
Exactly.
So the big question becomes, does that mean digital assistants really have a role at all? Like, where do you see digital assistants fitting in going forward? Are they being replaced or are they still playing a role, kind of like what I said earlier in this episode?
Well, they stay play a role, absolutely, right? Whether it's additional introspections, right? If like you're on a dashboard for an agent, right? Whether it's manufacturing, inventory management, reconciliations, you want more information, right? You can introspect it through that. That will be the interface through our dashboards, through our agent dashboards, to be able to ask it questions, to be able to give it feedback, is part of it, as well as being able to incorporate new things as we expand new things, new scope. You can talk to it and recommend that it do. And with some of the dynamic AI capabilities that exist today, we're starting to explore those kind of capabilities. So the digital system will always be a component in my mind, at least for the foreseeable future, because that's the way you interact with the agent. Uh,
Mhm.
for either even with autonomous type of processes.
Yeah. So instead of being the solution, right, they're more part of the experience. Is that
Yes.
kind of how you would phrase it?
Absolutely. Yeah, it does complement it. Without the digital assistant, right there would be a potential vacuum in terms of how do you give it feedback, how do you interact, how do you request it to do something again, right? Because you're giving it feedback because it got it about 90% right. It needs to tweak some things. That's how that's how we are enabling interaction with the agent as well as uh, enhancing it.
Mhm. Yeah. So we talked a little bit earlier about maybe a scenario where a digital assistant could be, but we kind of debunked that an AI agent would probably make more sense in that space. Are there any places where a digital assistant on its own would still make sense?
Outside of the ones that we talked earlier, it may be, for situations where there is a premium on being able to facilitate access to data, right? Being able to
Mhm.
query without having to do, like I was saying earlier, the SQL type of statements. That's where, whether it's, pulling up an account balance, looking at quickly, the average profitability for a particular line of business, or whatnot. That's where, do you need an agent for that? And that's become a very sore point. And I've given a very basic example, right? But there could be in different parts of the business. That's where a digital system would be the way to go to deploy as an entry point. Otherwise, if it's more, kind of in terms of operational efficiencies and scale, you're definitely looking more at a agent.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So digital assistants really aren't going away per se,
Right.
but they're shifting to be a part of the solution and a part of a broader AI strategy, so to speak, led by agents. And that's really where companies need guidance, understanding where they are and where to really invest. But if you're evaluating AI and trying to figure out where to focus, ERP Suites can help you navigate it. Whether it's understanding where digital systems fit or exploring AI agents as part of your business processes will help you make the right investment. So you take one thing away from this episode is this: digital assistants improve access, but AI agents drive outcomes. And right now, the real momentum and the real value is happening with AI agents. So until next time, don't just automate, transform. Catch you next time.